Back in September, there were accusations circling around that Red Bull and Aston Martin had exceeded the budget cap, which they had introduced just 1 year prior. Want to know what's going to happen with Red Bull and Aston Martin, and what they had done to get in such trouble? Well, just keep on watching as we take a look. Stay tuned to better understand what is going on with Red Bull and Aston Martin. First, let's take a look at what the budget cap is. You may not know what the budget cap is. That's nothing to be ashamed of. Even diehard fans of Formula 1 don't know exactly what it is, as it was only introduced in October of 2021. The goal of the budget cap was to make sure that nobody competing in the championships would have any advancements over any other people competing in the race, and to have an even playing field. They do this by putting a price on the amount of money that a team can use on their vehicles. The cap only works on things that directly affect the car and the way it'll run. This does not include marketing costs or race driver fees, nor does it have any effect on the top 3 highest paid personnel for a team, hotel rooms, or traveling. It does have an effect on the purchasing of a customer engine supply deal. It caps them at $15 million per season. The official price of the cap changes at once early on was $175 million. It was then lowered to $145 million, only to be lowered once more to $140 million. Next, let's talk about the Red Bull and Aston Martin situation. It was confirmed by the Federación Internacional del Automóvil that they were looking into accusations that surrounded Red Bull and Aston Martin. They let everyone know their sincerity by saying that any breach of the financial regulations would be dealt with. This was in late September when the accusations first came about. The governing body of F1 were set to make an announcement that discussed the analysis of the year's financial data. This would reveal if any breaches of the cap had taken place in the prior year. Many people were looking forward to it, as not long before they had heard the rumors from a report in the German magazine Automotor und Sport. The magazine alleged that they had gone over the budget cap, which is a serious accusation, considering that the penalty for this could end with exclusion from the championships, despite the bosses of the other teams like Mercedes and Ferrari saying that the breaches were an open secret. Red Bull told reporters that the reports made against them were nothing but pure speculation. Aston Martin also confirmed that its 2021 reports were already submitted and that they were just awaiting certification from the FIA. Now, let's talk about what the situation looks like now. The news of Aston Martin and Red Bull going possibly over their budget happened in late September, and since then, many new things have been brought forward. It was announced almost a month after the report first came out that Red Bull and the FIA have reached a breach agreement for their less serious procedural breach. Aston Martin agreed to an applied behavior analysis. While we know about Aston Martin agreeing to the ABA, we don't know any of the information surrounding it. The details about the ABA will not be revealed until Friday, the 28th of October. From what has been gathered so far, it seems that Red Bull was found guilty of a procedural breach, as well as a minor overspend. Minor for Red Bull means $1.8 million. For their breaching of the procedure, they have been forced to receive both a financial penalty as well as sporting. This comes after Christian Horner, who is the boss of Red Bull, had an extensive talk with Mohammed Ben Sulayem, who is the president of FIA. Due to situations that took place the week of the talking, negotiations were put on hold for a bit. Moving on, let's take a look at why Gunther Steiner thought the cost cap needed to stop. Gunther Steiner, who is the boss of the Formula 1 team Haas, let out publicly that he thought both the FIA and Red Bull should put an end to the whole overspending situation. Steiner said that he believed the best option was to move on with everything and find the right level of punishment. He said that the punishment should be fair, not too lenient, but also keep in mind the way they can avoid this type of thing happening again in the future. He also said that it should not take 9 months to discuss something of this nature. He claimed that the budget cap was responsible for being where they were in the sport. He doubled down on his statements and said that there was a lot of interest from fans and that they needed to come up with better solutions, which means the FIA coming up with a penalty and then finally moving on. He finished by saying that he did not have an idea as to what would happen because he was not the judge. He simply thought that they needed to sort the case out and not waste any more time talking about it. Let's now take a look at what Max Verstappen had to say about him and Red Bull. One of the biggest drivers for Red Bull is Max Verstappen. He's made a huge name for himself since he started driving years ago, and now showing that he's got no plans to slow down anytime soon. When Verstappen was asked what possibly could he have left to prove, he responded by saying that it's not about what's left to prove, as opposed to learning more from whatever car he's driving, in particular, what it is that he can apply to the next time he races. Verstappen put things in perspective, saying that they can try to win the last 3 races, but the truth is that it all comes from the state that the car's in. In the same interview where Verstappen was asked what's left to prove, he also took some time to look back on his year. He admitted that at the beginning of the year, Red Bull was in a much more difficult place, but they turned around and they did so very quickly. The turnaround, Verstappen said, was thanks to the car, which he said was very competitive and reliable. According to him, it was among one of the most important things to turn around. While on the topic of Red Bull, let's take a look at what Toto Wolff had to say about the team. Toto Wolff, who is the team principal for Mercedes, was asked what the chances look like for Mercedes in Mexico. Wolff made the smart decision and avoided making any type of bold predictions, saying that he was going to have to bite his tongue. He made this decision due to the fact that there were times when he had figured the team would do great on a certain track, but as time went on, they proved to do not as well as he assumed they would. On paper, things look good, he said, saying that their draggy should be effective in thin air. He also said that it was good that the race was coming next week. That way he could possibly give them a run for their money. Time would show that to be less than extremely achievable, as in the past 5 years, there was only one time that Mercedes won in Mexico. The win comes thanks to Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton has been racing with Mercedes for almost 10 years now, and he has since over 100 victories, 103 to be exact, which is the most races won by any driver ever in the history of Formula 1. Finally, let's talk about the passing of Red Bull founder. Dietrich Mateschitz, who was the man responsible for the energy drink company Red Bull, passed away at the age of 78. The death was announced by Red Bull via email, and it did not feature either a time of death nor a location of death. German and Austrian news reports claimed that it was pancreatic cancer that took his life. It was obviously sad for everybody to hear that he passed. The news came from Christian Horner, who is the racing principal for Red Bull. In the announcement, Horner talked about the things that Mateschitz had done for not only sports, but for people, saying they were second to none. He continued on to say that many racers in the sport had to be grateful towards him for all of the opportunities that he had given racers for many years. He also went on to praise the vision that he had, as well as his strength of character and his inability to fear chasing one's dreams. He finished by saying everything he's discussed before was all that Mateschitz had done for the sport of Formula 1, saying that Mateschitz proved that it was possible to make a difference to so many drivers. There's a lot of news circling around Red Bull and Aston Martin. Fans once speculated that Red Bull would be excluded from the championship that year. What do you think will end up happening to Red Bull and Aston Martin? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. It would be awesome if you gave the video a thumbs up, and please don't forget to subscribe for more scrumptious videos like these. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.